Welcome to the Auto Club 400 edition of the Wedge Adjustment NASCAR DFS show. I'm your host, Josh Neal. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsSwish. I'm joined by PJ Frappier. You can follow him on Twitter at PJFrapDFS. So this race is 200 laps broken down into three segments. The first segment is 60 laps, the second segment is 60 laps, and the third segment is 80 laps. So let's not waste your guys' time. Let's jump right into it as we normally do and break down positions 39 through 31. And this week, of course, qualifying had to ruin everything, and I think we will talk about it later, but cash games are going to be really hard to come by, and there's going to be a lot of people with the same exact lineups, which means you might want to stay away from the double-ups this week. I'm just going to talk about the 39th position real fast in Gray Galding. I know if you listened last week, I told you to maybe slide him into your cash game lineup. It sort of worked out if you put Ryan Newman like I did. It worked nicely, but, Ryan Newman did stay out there in the last pit stop. So sorry if you did that. He could have won you some cash, though. But let's move on from him. This is where you're going to find your Jimmie Johnson, your Joey Logano, your Trevor Bayne, and even Aric Almirola. So right there are four guys that should be, above the 30th position. PJ, I'm going to start out with you. What's your thoughts on Joey Logano and Jimmie Johnson?
Yeah, you have to play them probably in all formats. Guessing that they're going to be anywhere from 60 to 70, maybe even 75% owned. Honestly, they should be probably 100% owned in cash, but as we all know, they just won't be. That's just not how it works. They'll be really high, but still, like maybe in the big field double-ups, you'll see 60 to 70%, but still, I think you're going to have to play both of those guys. I think the probability of them being on the GPP winning team is very high, like really high. It's probably 60 to 70% that they're on the winning GPP team. So I think you're going to have to eat the chalk, and it's just it kind of is what it is, and then maybe differentiate elsewhere. But as far as cash games go, I think it's going to be very difficult. Just those four that you mentioned, and if people are putting the pole sitter, which we'll get to later, but if they're putting Kyle Larson in their cash lineups too, then you're really, 1v1 and all your head-to-heads and all that. And I just don't really there's not really an edge to be had in cash games like there usually is.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, if you have to fade Logano or Johnson in GPP, which it's kind of crazy to think about, but
yeah,
if one of them does have a problem, who would you fade if you had to pick one?
100% Jimmie Johnson.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
The backup car did not sound too thrilled with it. I know it had decent speed in practice, but that alone for me is enough to get me off that. They didn't feel comfortable enough to even run in qualifying with that car, so that just told me that car came to the track not prepared for anything. So
but
it's not that long of a race. I know it's 400 miles, but it's only 200 laps. So, yeah, for me, it would be Jimmie Johnson.
I'm going to say Joey Logano. And I agree with everything you said. He wasn't happy with the car. But this is the same Jimmie Johnson. I believe it was last year, but I don't know. He has a history with these backup cars winning races. And I just feel like that he's due. He's due for some good finishes. Last week he did deliver. I think, there's something about magic with Jimmie Johnson's backup car. I think, he has a chance to win the race, but, like you said, they're not happy. But, if you're like Logano is a very aggressive driver, and especially if you watch the Xfinity race earlier, there's a lot of guys hitting the wall when you're running that top line. I'd imagine, he's going to run the top line. So I could easily see, him blowing a tire or, hitting the wall really hard and have to go lap down. But, that's my side of it. I'd fade Logano. But I agree with you 100%. I think you got to have both of these guys in cash and GPP. But, I mean, I think for some people they're going to try to be the contrarian and fade one of these. And I just don't think this is the week you want to do it. But I'm just saying if you play 5 lineups, I think you could, GPPs especially, I think one of your lineups you should fade just because I think they're going to be, like you said, so heavily owned.
Yeah.
So there is that contrarian lineup you might want to set because it could happen. We've seen it before. We've been so carried away. Just like a couple of weeks ago, Kevin Harvick, he blew his tire and hit the wall. If you faded him, you won some money. And I think this could be the week that happens, but, I'm not going to do it. I'm sure 85% of the people are not going to do it. But, if you got the extra bankroll, why not do that? So,
yeah.
Let's talk about Trevor Bayne. He's a little bit more, people might not know him as well. What's your thoughts on him? Is it about the same as Logano and Johnson?
Yeah, I just can't see him not moving up. I think you can he's definitely one that you can get off of in GPPs. There's no – like if you are going to play cash, you have to play him. You really do. That good of a car, that good of a driver, starting that far back, it's just you don't – again, like we kind of talked about it last week and a couple weeks ago, is you don't really get these chances for these guys that are good cars to start so far back.
Exactly.
And when you do, you have to take advantage of it. I mean, it's a negative EV play to not play him in cash. Like, again, the probability of him being in a winning cash lineup is so high, and you just can't really mess around with not playing him. I mean, and just the fact that he is going to be so highly owned that
if he does deliver, you're going to be screwed.
Right. So you almost – like if you're playing cash, you have to go with the masses here, because if you don't, like it's just –
yeah, if you don't, late race, you're going to find yourself at the bottom. It's like retrospect, if he has a flat tire or something, you're going to jump up. But there's so many people going to have him.
Right. You have to use him as a blocker.
Yeah, you have to. And that's a perfect word for it, because I've always tried to think of those words. It's like really any DFS sport, if so many people are going to have them, I think you got to have them in cash, especially. So.
Yeah, no doubt.
Here's a guy, we go back and forth with him every week. Aric Almirola. This week I'm not too worried about him. He's shown speed. This is a really good track for him. And, it's back to the Trevor Bayne situation. I think a lot of people are going to be on him cash. So what do you do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he's another one. You have to play him. He messed up, and well, not he, but the team messed up the setup so bad on qualifying. He actually tried to run 2 qualifying runs, got down halfway down the backstretch and just shut it off because he couldn't even get through 1 and 2 getting up to speed without almost losing control of the car. So they just full on whiffed in qualifying. Like it has nothing to do with the quality of car he has. He was right around mid-pack in happy hour today in both single lap and 10 laps. So
yeah,
for me, it's not a worry at all. Again, he's just he would have to go there. Like he's starting 31st. It's just the smart play.
Yeah, and I think he's a lock for a top 20 finish. I know that is a stretch, but I think, Stenhouse last week, they got something going. I'm sure they're going to share notes, and, like we was talking about earlier, Stenhouse, this is one of Stenhouse's best tracks. I think he's going to give some advice to his teammate, and I think, full on go with Trevor Bayne and Aric Almirola. So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Let's move on to the 30 through 21 range. This almost feels like the 31 through 39 range, like the past couple weeks, we talked about. You got guys like Landon Castle, Michael McDowell, David Reagan, Cole Witt, Corey LaJoie, Reed Sorensen, just guys you would never play. And I almost feel like we shouldn't even talk about 25 through 30. We could if you want to, but I don't think you're want to talk about it.
I think there's some smarter people that are talking about landing Castle for some reason.
Okay, I can see it. Okay, here's the thing about last year's race. I think I've seen someone put out that a couple of these guys had top 20 DFS days, top 10.
Yeah.
The problem with that is there were so many people that had problems in that race. I know my guy Blaney, he had problems. I think Chase Elliott may have had a problem. Kyle Busch had a problem.
Yeah.
There were so many guys in that race that just had problems. And, I think there was a late race restart because I know Ricky Stenhouse, he came in fifth. So,
Yeah.
and AJ Allmendinger, he came in the top 10. So, I mean, there were so many people that had problems. That's why they're leaning Castle, I would assume. He may be from California. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think he is. But I get it. Like,
he's just not shown speed this year.
Right. And like I think there's a ton of like different ways that you can go in tournaments only because like there's so many guys that end up on the lead lap at the end of these races because there are so many yellows. And so many guys take the wave around. And like I was telling you, at least 3 of the last 4 times that they're at California, it's ended green, white, checker. So all those guys that are a lap down, they just take the wave around and
exactly
white checker, anything can happen. So there's going to be, if that is to play out again, there's so much randomness to that, which I get, like throwing darts. Like if you're going to play a ton of different lineups,
why not go with a couple of these guys?
Yeah, he's certainly not going to be in my main lineup.
No, and here's another thing. Most of the time, the 2-mile tracks, you got to bring your best stuff because I mean the horsepower on the the engines, just everything that goes in the cars. The strong cars are going to do very well at these tracks.
Yeah.
And, I think you can back me up on this. There's not going to be as many lap down cars. You're not going to see a guy go 3 laps down, 4 laps down. They're going to stay around if they do get lapped, 1 lap, 2 lap. And if there is cautions, they get on the, it's like you're saying, there's so much to be able to do on a restart. You can gain so many positions. So I can see why they do it. And like you said, if you're going to do tons of lineups, sure, why not? They could very well be in a GPP lineup, as a winner. So I'm not going to have any of them. You don't sound like you're going to have any of them. So let's move on to the 24 through 21 range. This is where I think it gets interesting. You got some guys right here that you could very well pick. And like I said, AJ Allmendinger, he came in the top 10 last year. And here's the thing with him. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have his crew chief still. I think that suspension ends this week or next week. That car, he in the 10-lap averages, he did run on old tires, and he was ahead of guys like Kurt Busch, Suarez, but he ran his 10-lap average on these old tires. So he's an interesting play for me, but judging by the people that I can get at his salary, I'm probably not going to have too much of them. And just plus, that team, they're just lacking speed, which is kind of crazy because this is the kind of track that he did do well at last year. So what's your thoughts on him? I don't think I'm going to have any of them. He's worth a GPP flyer, obviously, but I'm just not feeling it this week with him.
Yeah, I think like this is the range like of those guys that are probably going to be, I don't know, on the lead lap probably. And like I said, I mean, 3 out of the last 4. If it happens again, I mean, if history has shown anything that it's going to, and it's going to repeat itself, and we're going to have a late race caution.
He is an aggressive driver. He is an aggressive driver, and he can make up some spots.
That's the thing with him. He is really, really good on restarts because he is so aggressive. So again, you can't predict where the cautions are going to fall.
Yeah, exactly.
So on and so forth. But he's somebody that could be in a position like he was last year. I believe his average running spot was about 5 or 6 positions further back than he finished last year, and it was just because of the green white checker.
Yeah, him and Stenhouse really got on. I remember they was like right behind each other, and both of them they flew through that pack. So I may throw him in a couple of GPPs tomorrow just to say I have him. But here's a guy, Paul Menard. no one, people are not talking about this guy. He's in an RCR car. An RCR car won last week, but that was by pit stop. But this is a pretty good track for Paul Menard. I was looking, he actually does pretty well at this track. I am kind of worried though. He was behind Allmendinger in the 10-lap averages, so I feel as if you're worried about Allmendinger, you should probably be worried about Menard because he's not showing much speed either this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. He was actually running a really good nationwide race today, and then he got taken out by Erik Jones.
Yeah.
He just misjudged it, clearly. It wasn't anything intentional, but he was actually really, really fast. And then they're different cars, don't get me wrong, but
there's a lot of similarities to them this year, though. So
there are. And he said after he got out of the Infield Care Center that that they had learned a lot for tomorrow. But again, it's hard with the garage talk, because the speed isn't backing up his talk. So
is he
very, very light on.
Maybe you can inform me a little bit. I haven't paid much attention to him. Is he a good restarter? That could be something you could gain some positions, but I don't really pay much attention to him.
Yeah, I've not really dug into Paul Menard as far as that's concerned. You can though. There's a way that you can look up restarts and how well they rate on restarts. I don't have the website off the top of my head, but it is possible to look up.
Yeah, so I would encourage everyone to do that because this is probably one of the races you might want to have those stats with you. 22, Danica Patrick. I'm just going to pass on her. She just pisses me off every week. What's your stance on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, if she's hanging around, late race, but I don't see her moving up. This week, a target to get in the top 10 DFS lineups, so you got to have a score of about 40 to 45, and a lot of times that means that your cars are going to come in the top 10 of the actual race. So again, if you can't really see that happening, it's really hard to play somebody that you can't really see having a top 10 actual day, because that's going to lead to a top 10 DFS day, and that's the way you're going to win a tournament. So for me, very little. I mean, there is that chance, but again, it's just a multi-lineup play. It's not a core play.
Yeah. If you're playing 3 or 4 lineups, pick someone else. Yeah. Just do it for me, please. 21, Todd Dylan. Looking here on the 10-lap average, I don't see him on here. So he was one of the cars that actually did not do 10-lap averages. Right. So, he may be hiding something, but it goes back to what you just said. You can't see him finishing that high up. His recent finishes, he's had those bursts where he'll get to 15th and he'll just scoot his way back as the race goes on. So, I mean, I can see someone, it's like you said, it's a multiple lineup top deal for him as well. I'm not going to have him. I just don't have enough information. I don't have enough confidence to pick him. Yeah,
he's in the same boat. You start. I just, you envision him finishing right about where he's starting, and that's just, as we know in DFS, is not good enough. You need place differential. The one thing about this race that adds to the randomness as well is that the fast laps are really spread out because guys get off sequence with pit stops. Like Chris Buescher last year had, I want to say it was like 8 to 10 total fast lap points. That's quite a bit of fast laps.
Yeah.
So you could kind of see that, and guys may accumulate points that way. But again, it's just a randomness thing, and if you can't really see him moving up into the top 10, I just don't think you can play him.
Yeah, totally agreed. Speaking of Chris Buescher, let's move on to the 20 through 11th positions. Starting right there with Chris Buescher. I'm just going to be quite frank with you. I will call you crazy if you pick him in any lineup. He's not showing any speed in 10-lap averages all throughout the season, just not showing any speed. I don't think he's crack the top 20 in any race. Maybe the Daytona 500, but that team's not figuring it out. JTG Doherty is not figuring it out, as we talked about Allmendinger. So, like you said, if you can't see him moving up, I see him moving back. He's kind of an aggressive driver too, so he may. This is what I see with him. I see him back like 27, and on a late race restart, he gets up to 20. I think where he's starting is the highest he can finish. I can't see him finishing a position above that.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, if you can't see him moving up, and you can't realistically see him getting 40 points, I just don't think you can play him.
Yeah. I think we need a button for that. Same deal. We need that. We need a button for that because we say it so much. It's that time.
Yeah.
Last time I wore this hat, I did not have good luck. So I don't know why I wore it. I'm just now remembering that. But Ryan Blaney, starting 19th. He's had good cars every single week. But there's always a problem. For whatever reason, him and Joey Logano were having problems there at the end of the race. Probably brakes. I think that was, I think that's the main reason. But starting 19th, this is a guy, if you're on your cash lineup, I think the way to differentiate yourself is picking a guy like him. If you have the salary remaining. I'm not saying pick him by any means, but he's 19th, and he's obviously got a car that can come in the top 10, top 5. He was 6th in 10-lap average in happy hour. I'm for certain playing him in GPPs. Probably going to go overweight on him because I don't think a lot of people will be on him. I think they'll move up to the position right above this to Dale Jr., so this makes for a great GPP pick. What's your thoughts on him? I feel like we're in the same boat.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite GPP plays this week. He'll be in my main on my main team that goes into all the higher dollar stuff. He'll be on that team for sure. The speed is there, and he's finally starting far enough back where we can actually play him, where we can get high ceiling from him without having to lead laps and win the race. I love him. I really do. And he's aggressive too, and it sets up really, really nice for him this week. And
this is the range, like Ryan Newman last week. This is the range where one of these guys can sneak up to the top 5 and win you a GPP. So I think a lot of people should put a lot of, they should write that down like you just said. They should make a note of that to really consider him for a GPP lineup. As we just talked about, Dale Jr. in 18th. Here's the problem, like I just said. I feel like he's going to be – well, now I think about it, you can't put all those high-dollar people on one team. But I feel like in this range, he's definitely going to be the most popular. Probably going to have the most exposure in this range. A lot of people will. So, for me, I'd rather go Blaney. Take your savings, use it elsewhere. Are you in the same boat? I feel like you are.
Yeah, 100%. Junior's looked horrible here, and this weekend at least. Typically, he's been good here, and he's been good at Michigan, which is a sister track to Fontana.
Exactly.
But they are struggling very, very badly.
They didn't even run a 10-lap.
I know. They could not figure it out. He ran 18 laps in happy hour and somebody had asked him, I think, on Twitter, and he said, well, it's kind of hard to run laps when you're in the garage making changes. Yeah. So that's tough. And especially coming off last week, too, where a lot of people thought that he was going to kind of get back on the horse and have a good run, and they just went backwards. Like, their in-race adjustments, for whatever reason, last week were just not there. Like, they made the wrong adjustments each time. So it's concerning. I probably won't play him, and just his name recognition alone, and he's by far the most popular driver in the sport, and that alone just gets him so much ownership, whether
exactly.
it's or not.
Yeah, just the average fan, that they think they come on to DraftKings and just win a bunch of money. They're going to be like, why not pick Dale Jr.?
Right.
Moving on to position 17, this is a guy that actually really intrigues me. I had the 15 lap averages. If you have not seen those, check my Twitter out. I did post a picture of those. And one of those guys on that list was Clint Bowyer. And he was, I think, right near the top of it. He wasn't in the top three, but he was right there at it. So for me, it goes back to name recognition. And he's not a guy that a lot of people know about in the DFS world. If you look at his results, you may be scared away from him. But this car is going to have speed. I'm pretty sure he locks his car this week. I said that last week. Now that I think about that, I said he locked his car last week. He said he loved his car last week, and he didn't really do that good like we thought he was. So,
yeah,
I think that car is a little bit better this week. I'm definitely going to have him and Blaney in a lot of my GPP lineups. I just think that he will move to the top 10, top 7. I think I could see him finishing 6th, 7th. I think that's where he will finish. They're due for a really good finish. That team's been struggling of late, so he's one of my favorite GPP favorites. Excuse me. He's one of my GPP targets that I will be putting in my lineups. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I like him, and again, it's just in this range, and Stewart-Haas does have a lot of speed here, and they've shown that time and time and again with Harvick. Kurt Busch has been good here. So yeah, I like it. For me, I don't love it because he hasn't shown like that elite speed like Blaney has. Like Blaney has elite speed. They just missed qualifying. And a lot of guys, they were saying they almost didn't even bother working on their qualifying stuff. They just got right into race trim. And, I personally can't really see him coming in the top 5. And starting where he's starting, like that's like really what you would want for like your ceiling. Like, yeah, you can live with the top 10, but if you're really trying to get the most out of him, just don't go to the top 5.
I can definitely, I get where you're coming from. I do feel like, the tire problems, I feel like I'm going to take a flyer, and I'm going to say a couple of these guys starting ahead of them, a couple of the guys that we've talked about. I'm going to say, they have some problems. They have tire problems, hit the wall, whatever.
Sure.
Late race restart. Clint Bowyer, he's not afraid to move you around and get to the front. So, I mean, it goes back to the restarts.
Yeah.
Make sure you check those stats out. Top 5. I definitely can't see top 5. I think it would take a miracle for him to get in the top 5. Not saying he can't do it.
Right.
But I feel like, with the tire problems and all that stuff, I think 7th could get you what you want out of him just because of the other people you may pick. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of a preference deal, what you see. Everyone has a different viewpoint on that. So,
sure.
He's one of my favorites. I don't think you like him as much as I do, but, we all can't agree on everything all the time. So
exactly. Yeah, and it's not like I hate him either. Yeah. Like, I definitely don't hate him. Like, I'll have him in some. Yeah.
So moving on, and here's a guy, going back to Blaney, here's one of the guys that I'm considering putting in my cash lineup, Ricky Stenhouse, starting at 16th. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he moved up into the 7,000s this week on DraftKings. I may be mistaken.
7,000 on the number.
Yeah. I think I'm not saying he's cheap by any means, but for a guy that's riding high in confidence, hitting the wall in practice ain't going to give you much confidence. But this is his home track. He came in the top 5 last race here. I feel like, this is just the kind of track he does well at. He does well at the 1.5-mile, 2-mile racetracks. For me, when I'm filling out my cash lineup, he's like the guy that's last. He's that guy that fits in that last position. I could go down to a guy like AJ Allmendinger, but I don't have the confidence in him. I feel like, a lot of people are going to be like me, and they're going to end on him. He's the guy that's going to best fit your cash lineup. Do I really think he's going to come in the top 10? I'm skeptical on that. Do I feel like he can? Exactly. I exactly feel that way because, like we said, he was right around 12th, 13th, 14th, like A.J. Allmendinger on that restart last year, and he just zoomed to the front. There for a moment I thought, he may win the thing just because he had those fresh tires. But, he's just the guy that keeps coming up on my cash lineup, and I feel like I almost have to take him. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, well, as far as that goes, like you are kind of –
You're like zoned into him.
Right. Like if you're picking those 5 guys like we had talked about at the opening of the show, you are. That's where you're left with. You're left with the $7,000 price range. And you're picking from Stenhouse, Menard, and Allmendinger. And
you really got to nitpick at that. So
that's like the exact reason though why for me personally I will not be playing any cash games this weekend because I don't want to make that decision.
Yeah, and more people should take that advice. For me, almost I feel like if you play head-to-heads, that's the way to go this week. Stay away from the double-ups. I think that's the best advice we can give you. 50-50s, head-to-heads. Stay away from the big double-ups because a lot of people are going to have those same lineups.
And I mean, you honestly might find a lot of it in head-to-heads too. Like, it's just so incredibly obvious this week on where to go that it's like the edge is completely gone. Like the people that do a lot of research for NASCAR on a typical week, we have, I wouldn't say an incredible edge because the industry as a whole is getting smarter, but there's quite a bit of edge on the public. This week, there is like literally no edge at all. And that's not something I want to be playing in because I want the edge. Like we do the work throughout the week. You don't want somebody that's just going to be able to, click, 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 click. And all of a sudden, you got a 1v1 and you got Stenhouse and he's got Menard. Menard has a better day. And then,
Exactly. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm just going to be stubborn and I'm going to risk it anyway. I'm bad for that, but I'm sure I'll learn my lesson. Let's move on into the top 15. Guy you was talking about, Kurt Busch. He really likes this track. Just looking here on the 10-lap average. He's 21st. Yeah. Allmendinger on old tires was one spot above him. That is worrisome, but Tony Gibson, he's a great crew chief, and I am sure they will figure something out overnight to get that car competing for a top 10. But as you say, you want top 5, top 3 from this position and his price per dollar range.
Right.
No thank you, as you would say. Move on.
Pretty much. Like if they would have shown like top 10 lap, I would have been jumping for joy because he does love this place and he is good here. And Stewart-Haas as a whole is good here. I'm so concerned on that 10 lap. And practice has been in the past a great indicator of how the race is going to be run. I want to say the top 6 single lap cars last year from Happy Hour finished in the top 10. I mean, yes, that could be random and whatever, but then it was 5 of the top 10 had the top 5 10 lap.
Yes.
Practice speeds last year were huge. And I know, again, we're different this year because of the new downforce package. They didn't run that last year. So we'll see. I honestly, I really do wish I could play him because I think he would have been such a good GPP play, and he may still be. He has like that huge upside and the huge ceiling that you would want.
Yeah, so it's hard not to say don't pick him.
Yeah.
But it's really not that hard for me because I really don't see him
it's pretty thin. Like, he would have to run almost a perfect race for him to really, really hit the ceiling that you would want from where he's starting.
This almost feels like a race where he's going to have problems.
Well, the battery the last 2 weeks, I mean,
Yeah.
they can't figure that out. I really don't get it. I don't know if they're not running alternators or what is going on, but and they're not the only one. Like, RCR had the same problem. I really don't get it. But
Yeah.
in a row for him, no.
I feel like almost his momentum, everything has to change before he's playable again. Because I know I had him a couple weeks ago, and he went from 12th to like 33rd, and he killed my lineup. I think he was in a lot of. I had him a pretty good bit of them in GPPs, and he just torched my lineup.
Yeah.
Moving on. Here's a guy that most weeks I would say we got to wait and see for him. We got to have him prove us wrong. But starting 14th, Erik Jones, he is – I don't want to say he's one of my favorites, but he's right up there. He was fastest in 15 lap averages, and he was, fourth in 10 lap averages. And Martin Truex's teammate is fastest in 10 lap. Both of those guys have their cars tuned up. And for me, I'm going to have my fair share of Erik Jones because I can see him leading this race or coming in the top 5. For his price range, it's – do you know exactly what his price range or his price is?
Yes.
I feel like it's
77.
77. That is – I feel like that's almost a steal. As we talked, with Blaney, I feel like Erik Jones, he really liked his car. He rode in the Xfinity race earlier. He looked really good. He also did spin Menard out, and I could be worried about that if he does get back there and him and Menard are, nose to tail. That could scare me, but I ain't going to count on it. I think Erik Jones has been the top 10 all day as he was last week, if not top 5. He's definitely one of my favorite GPP plays, and he could very well win this race. Just because the 78's tuned up, 77's tuned up, everything's lining up for him to go up there and compete this week.
Yeah.
I think this week, I'm not going to say who I'm picking yet, but I almost feel like it's going to be Young Gun that's going to win this. I feel like Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Erik Jones, I feel like them 3 may be up there in the top 4 at the end of the race. So that's just something to watch out for, but he's one of my favorite GPP plays.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say. I completely agree. It's shown elite speed, and again, the single lap was 4th too. So if it does come down to a late race restart, he has the single lap. So great GPP play, great play. And last year for this race, I had almost pulled the trigger on Larson and Elliott, and I backed off because they're young, and it was just a scary play. Turns out it was the right play. So now I'm not going to be so results-oriented to be like, oh, I'm definitely playing Blaney and I'm definitely playing Erik Jones. But this is the kind of race where you could see both of them. They are elite, in my opinion,
Exactly.
especially for their price. And they're so incredibly fast. So I love them both a lot.
And to echo your point, I did the exact same thing you did. I was scared to play Chase Elliott. I was scared to play Kyle Larson. And that happened to me a couple of times last year. I was like, should I? They're too young. Surely, they're not going to do that. It bit me in the butt so many times. So this week, I'm not going to even look at their experience. I feel like you said, they're both great GPP play. And I feel like I'm going to say the exact same thing I said for Erik Jones, Chase Elliott. I can say the exact same thing. The only difference is he didn't race in the Xfinity race. But he is riding so hot with momentum. He's in the top 5 every week. He's leading some laps every week. what can I say? I feel like,
Yeah.
he's a great GPP play because let's go back to this. He was second in best 10 consecutive lap averages, and I don't have my 15 lap average picture with me, but I'm pretty sure he's probably up there if he did do the 15 laps. So
Yeah, number one in single lap too.
yeah, so restart. These young guys are so good at restarts. I feel like there's something with these young guys in restarts. I feel like it
Yeah.
started with Kyle Busch, and it seems like all these guys are rockets on restarts. So fire them up. That's all I can
Oh yeah.
say.
Oh yeah. The more we get into this, the more I am, and the more we talk about this and talk through it, the more I'm excited to potentially have a lineup like that where I will fade
And put all the young guys on one
two.
lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, because there's a guy that's starting pretty close to the front too, where I don't think many people will be jumping up and down for that. I love too, so I think this could actually be a nice little tournament weekend because if you do decide not to go Logano and Johnson, like it's obviously very risky,
Yeah.
but if you can get all 6 of your drivers in the top 10, regardless of where they start, well, obviously you don't want them to start inside the top 10, but
Yeah.
if they have any kind of place differential and they can get up in the top 10,
That's a very good point, and that there's been many times that's happened. I've seen that a lot of times happen. Where they just pick people who they think can finish in the top 10, and it does work. You can get a better average lineup with that. That being said, with those two guys,
right.
I'm with you. I feel like I'm gonna have a GPP lineup with all these young guys because realistically, I feel like they're all going to be near the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't see a scenario that Chase Elliott is not in the top 5. I cannot see a scenario where Erik Jones is not around the top 5.
I know.
And I definitely can't see Ryan Blaney not being near the top 10, if not top 5. So
yeah. Yep. Oh,
like
I like all the young. I really do.
Yeah. They are taking over the sport. The more we talk about experience, throw that out the window. I mean, these guys are putting so good equipment that they're, like I was listening to Xfinity race, they're expected to go out there and compete and race hard. So
right. And I mean, honestly, they have a leg up from, when all those older guys that came up, they didn't have things like iRacing and simulators and stuff like that where
yeah, exactly.
they already know like where the breaking points are. They already know what the car is going to do at certain tracks before they even get their butt in the seat. So
yeah, that's a great point. Great point. Now I feel like it goes downhill from there. Kasey Kahne.
Next.
Next. Yeah, I mean
oh man, no chance.
Yeah, like you said, you really can't pick him. He's a little too high price for me. I feel like he'll finish near 12th. Just not much potential for him to do anything, really.
Nope.
If anything, I can see him, him being one of the guys that has problems. So just don't play him. So Austin Dillon, same boat.
Nope.
None for me.
Nope.
He was 18th in 10 lap. For me, he would have to be top 3 to play him. So
yeah, no, and I mean, I'm completely fine with taking these stands because trust me, I won't have any of them either. So it's not like I'm suggesting you not play them so I can play them. Like I literally will not have one of them.
Me either. Daniel Suarez. Nope.
Nope.
Okay, Kyle Busch. Now, for me, I can never say not to play Kyle Busch. Last week, I was so close to picking him to win the race. I said he would dominate a chunk of the race. Was right about that, but he had some bad luck. For me, it's never a safe idea or a good idea to not play him at all. You have to have exposure to Kyle Busch because he can win a race on any given day. Unless he has some car problems, he's going to be near the top 5.
Yeah.
Here's where it's so hard, though. He's so high priced. He's 13th in 10 consecutive laps.
Yeah.
I think you have to play him GPP in some lineup. If you're playing 5 lineups, 6 lineups, 10 lineups, put him in one, because if you don't, I promise you, take it from me, he's killed me multiple times. And he will kill you if you don't. It's just one of them you got to be safe.
Yeah, I know.
It's a
for
safe
sure.
play. The potential, that's the problem.
Yeah, because they haven't found it. He spun out by himself
Yeah, that was crazy, dude.
during happy hour today, and you never ever see that. And they had said after happy hour was over, they kind of interviewed him, and he said that they can't quite figure out the entry to the corners. And like I had said 2 weeks ago, if you're loose on entry, you can forget it. And they've been loose on entry all week, and they have not been able to figure out what it is. So I think they're going to be chasing it. That's not saying that he can't end the day with a solid finish. Again, if you're going to start inside the top 10,
You got to lead laps.
yep, you have to lead laps, period. So I really don't see them leading laps. Not a significant amount of laps.
Yeah.
If he leads 10 to 20 laps, whatever. As long as it's not the last laps, you'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll be okay. But like I said, just make sure you put them. I wouldn't put them in a high dollar GPP. Would not do that. Would not recommend that. But if you're max entering the $4, the quarter arcade, something like that, get your fair share of them just to be safe. So let's move on. Jamie Mcmurray, 7th 10 consecutive lap. I think it was second on 15 consecutive laps. He finishes where he starts most weeks. This is another case where I feel like 8th. He runs around the top 10. Him and Kyle Larson have some great cars this year. For me, I can't pick him because I don't think he's going to lead laps. Like you said, I just can't see a scenario. The past couple weeks, there's just no scenario where you can pick him because, if he was starting 20th, most definitely you could take a flyer on him. But this week, 8th, you can't do it.
Nope.
Is that it for him? You ready to move on?
Yeah. He's definitely a big no for me. So.
Kevin Harvick, starting 7th. He's a guy, like Kyle Busch, he can lead laps, win any given week. And also an interesting note on him, he did run his 10 consecutive lap on older tires, so that was second behind Kyle Larson.
Right.
So if there's going to, like you said, he dominated this race last year. Just in restarts, he just has bad luck. He can lead every lap, but he will not lead the last one. If he does lead some laps, he's got to lead enough laps, I think, to really put into effect, his power. So for me, you got to have some of them in GPPs. I think you have to, but it's kind of hard. You might have to not play. I think you might have to fade Logano or Jimmie in one of those lineups, unless you just want to play guys like Derek Cope and Jeffrey Earnhardt.
Right.
The most point, I feel like he does have the chance to lead laps, but I just don't think he's going to dominate the majority of the race. I feel like we're going to get to a guy. I think a lot of people are going to have the same viewpoint here in a couple of minutes, that I feel like he's going to dominate the majority of the race.
Maybe.
What's your thoughts on Harvick?
Harvick, I'll have some. He's just so expensive, and he didn't show and hasn't shown elite speed. I know he went out for his 10 lap on later tires, or older tires, excuse me, but 8th in single lap, obviously not bad. It's just not elite enough.
And he's not a good restart. He's struggling with that. Yeah. So, like you said, through the past 4 races, he's got to be able to lead a good chunk of the race.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a hard time seeing that. obviously anything can happen. He loves it here. He's really, really, really good here, like a lot of places. But for me, he's one I'll be underweight on.
And that's always a time to be worried when you're underweight on Harvick. So
yeah,
it's gonna be a good Sunday.
Like you said though, I don't want to play Derek Cope. So
yeah, that's true too. Matt Kenseth didn't have too much of luck last week. Took a big hit to the wall.
You did.
I feel like this is a bounce back spot for him. Top 10 finish, but he's not going to lead any laps for me. Just let's move on to the next guy.
Yeah, he's going to be. He can be solid. Like if he's in a mid-range type lineup, a more balanced lineup, if you will. If you don't have any of the expensive guys, and he's, not your most expensive guy, but not your, the cheapest guy or whatever. Obviously, he's not going to be the cheapest guy, but if he's the last one that will fit, like, I'll be fine with that, because you see him running in the top 10 most of the day. Obviously, for the massive upside, you would like for him to lead laps. But if he's the last guy into a more balanced lineup, and you already have guys that you think are going to lead laps,
yeah,
you can't have all 6 of your guys lead laps.
Yeah.
So if he is the last one in and he fits, that's fine, because he's a pretty safe bet for a top 10. I'm not saying he's a great play, but he's shown decent speed both in single lap and 10 lap. So, and he is good here. So,
and he's looking for a bounce back. So I could pretty much, if I was a betting man, I'd bet he'd come in the top 10.
Yeah, it's just a safe guy. It's not a lot of upside built into him, but he's safe.
Yeah. Let's move on to 5th with Ryan Newman. None for me. I picked him last week. I got to thank him for that, but I did not put that lineup in any, huge GPPs, or I probably would have won some money. None for me. He would have to be starting 20th, near that again.
Yeah, none. I mean,
he should fall like a rock from the get-go.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, obviously there's something to be said for confidence, but speed, just not there. And at the end of the day, it's about speed. So
yeah. Martin Truex. Let's go back to the Erik Jones point. Best 10 consecutive lap average. He is definitely a guy that I can see leading a good part of this race if he can get by Kyle Larson, which I feel like you may think he can. I'm not sure if I think he can do it, but he obviously did get bombed there. Was it him that got by Kyle Larson and won the race, or was it someone else? I think. Who got by Kyle Larson? Is Keselowski? Never mind. That's my bad.
No, it's all good.
So, for me, I'm definitely going to have him GPPs. You have to have them because that team, I'm really speechless, what to say, because I really do feel like he's going to lead laps. I feel like he can be in a winning lineup, but you got to fade one of them guys, I would assume, or you cannot pick Larson. I think you've got to.
Right.
You can't have Truex and Larson.
No.
you have whichever guy you think is going to win the race, lead the most laps, that's who you got to pick.
Right.
For me, I'd rather have Larson. I don't know I think you're leaning Truex.
100%. I love Martin Truex this week. Love Martin Truex this week. And I don't think that a lot of people will, because he has been horrible here.
Yeah.
Horrible. But elite speed this week. In his one lap in happy hour, he was half a second faster than Larson. That's pretty big. And he was fast 10 lap. Where I know Larson was third, and Larson went out on older tires, so that's kind of a tough comparison. But I really, really, really like him as a contrarian dominator.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely have to have him. And let's just have the debate here for a second, because I feel like these are the two guys we're going to be debating, Kyle Larson or Truex.
Yep.
For me, I want a guy. It's his home track. He won today, and he's tired of coming in second. He's so motivated. He's so pumped up for this race. For me, I feel like he's due for one. If he does not win this one, I don't know when he'll win. Everything is lining up for him. If you follow me on Twitter, I said he should bring the broom tomorrow because I feel like I know a lot of people, 95% of the people are going to be with me, and I'm kind of worried about it because I feel like we do this a lot, and most of the time, well, I think you'll say most of the time, but there are some times that the favorite doesn't win and doesn't show up. But this guy has came in second 3 consecutive weeks. Yeah. This guy has led some laps 3 consecutive weeks. He's due for one. And, I'm sure Truex is going to lead a good chunk of laps. I'm sure Larson's going to lead a couple laps. Just give me Kyle Larson. Everything's going for him. That's all I can say about it. I can't deny that Truex has got a really fast car. I can't deny that at all. Right. And Larson has shown to be, if he's trying to defend someone from taking the lead, he has shown to have a brain fart. So, I feel like more people should be on the way you're thinking because I feel like if that does happen, you will win a lot of money in GPPs tomorrow. So, but I'm sure you're going to hedge. You have to hedge, I'm sure.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I'm not going to have no Larson and all Truex. I will have more Truex, though, than Larson, to be honest with
you. In your cat, well, you said you wasn't playing cash, but if you were playing cash.
Cash is Larson.
Yeah. You don't
100%. 100%. But as far as, especially in GPPs where I think that Truex can lead a good chunk of the race and possibly win the race. His ownership is going to be drastically lower than Larson.
What do you think it will be? Because I feel like
it's tough. I think Larson will come in anywhere from 40 to 50.
Yeah,
where I can see Truex being 25 to 35 at the highest.
At the highest, yeah. I feel like if anything, he's going to be lower.
That's huge. And for me, in those lineups, he is going to be my most expensive guy, and I'm going to go with a more balanced approach. So now, whatever. I'll give away, some of the secret sauce, I guess, if you will, for me this week is, you go Truex, Blaney, Elliott, and Erik Jones.
I can't argue that.
Then you can work with whatever you can to fill in around that. For me, that's going to be it's going to be my core in a multi-lineup build.
Yeah, so I feel more confident about that lineup, especially finishing position wise, laps led, and all that stuff. As us other guys are going to be on Logano and Jimmie Johnson hardcore. So
I'm still going to have them. Definitely going to have them.
But you're going to have a significant advantage if they do. So
it's tough, and trust me, it's not going to be easy to be underweight on them and to have to decide to not play them in the higher dollar stuff. But again, no risk, no reward. You got to make a stand. You can't just hedge, and hope it works out.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, if you take a firm stand and you hit and you're right, you are really, really right.
And, there's, like I said, there's so many weeks, we say this and this and this is going to happen, and it's what you're doing. It's the other thing that we're not thinking about that's what happens. So,
that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that nobody will kind of think the way I think. Hopefully the people that listen to this maybe will, and then hopefully we all have a nice day tomorrow. But I'm just banking on the general public and the rest of everybody else to not think like that, because lineup construction is going to be huge. Because if you go with one of Logano and Johnson or both, you are immediately tied to a similar lineup to so many different people.
Yeah, and that's what makes this week so tough.
Right. And now, like I said, the more I think about it, the more it is a great tournament week, because if you do have the stones to fade them, you can have some great combinations.
And I'm definitely going to do I'm definitely going to be on your side in some lineups. I mean, like I've said, I think the young guys, those guys could all come to top 5. I think this week,
Yeah.
it's just one of these tracks, that these young guys love to race at, and
Yeah. I know we kind of got off the rails there, and I know we still have to talk about 2 guys, but
yeah, and those 2 guys, let's go right into it. Keselowski and Hamlin. For me, I can't pick Keselowski if he doesn't have Paul Wolf. That's just an automatic throw him out the window. But
100%.
he is Brad Keselowski. But Paul Wolf, he might be the most underrated crew chief in the garage. What he does, they've won so many races just from pit strategy alone. So
right.
For him, he's downgraded. He has won a championship, but Paul Wolf doesn't get the credit he deserves, I think.
Right.
So I'm not going to
play him, Brad.
Yeah. I don't think you can play him at all in anything. Just can't see him leading laps. The same goes for me with Denny Hamlin. His 10-lap average was just so horrible for where he's starting. He's 15th. He did surprise me, because he qualified second, so I thought he was going to have some speed when he did do that. But, once I looked at these numbers, I'm like, well, I could see an instance where he can lead some laps, but I really don't think he's going to come in the top 5. Like we said, the young guys are probably going to go up there and, eat his lunch. And
yeah,
I just can't play either of those 2.
No, and that's kind of honestly why we went right from Truex to the Larson thing, because personally, I don't have any interest in playing either one of those 2. I think it's really going to come down to either Truex or Larson, and you got to take in your GPP lineups, you got to take a stand. You can't play both of them because there's no. It would be really, really difficult unless they split the dominator points and come first and second, which again, probability most likely not going to happen. So you cannot play those 2 together in a lineup. I'll just reiterate, do not play Larson and Truex in the same lineup. That's capped your ceiling big time.
You want an optimal lineup this week. And I can't nail that home enough. As we do every week, we're going to do our picks. Who do you think has the most DK points tomorrow?
Logano. I mean, barring like a Harvick like last year leading 142 laps of the 200, Joey's just, I mean, if he comes in the top 10, that's a massive day. It's tough. I'll go Logano. It's just a safer play as far as most points, but yeah. Who do you got?
I've went back and forth on it. I've been thinking about it. Like you said, Jimmie and Joey are so far back. And I'm a guy that likes to be different from the crowd. I don't know what it is. I'm on the Kyle Larson juice. I think he's going to lead 3/4 of the race. Whether he wins or not, I don't know. His luck. I'm going Kyle Larson. I'm going to say, Jimmie or Joey, one of those guys, they're going to have some problems, where they'll come in the top 15. But I'm so caught up in these young guys. I feel like, they've got to get around those young guys, and I don't think they can do that. But like you said, they do come in the top 10. That's so many points.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just going to go out on the edge. I'm going to say Kyle Larson leads 3/4 of the race, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think Kyle Larson's going to win the race tomorrow. Think he's due for it, and I don't know what else to say. He's just due for it. I bring the broom to victory lane. He wins.
I like it.
Who are you going
go
with?
Truex.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it was coming.
Yeah. Just because, again, for me, it's just about making a stand, and I'm not going to say that I think that Truex can lead a bunch of laps and possibly win the race, and then go and pick Larson to win the race.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good thing to do, I don't think.
Probably not. You just have to make a stand, and my stand this week is going to be Truex, and I'm with you, the young guys. The young guys in Truex this week are going to be either a big part of my success or a big part of my failure this week. But
do you see, other than Truex, do you see any guy that's not one of these young drivers we're talking about? Can you see any of them winning this race?
Ugh. I mean, barring a situation like last week where –
oh, yeah, of course.
so they stay out with the –
I don't think that's going to be a good way to go this week. If you stay out on that last restart, I feel like this track's so big, those 3 or 4 laps, I feel like you can easily be.
Well, and this track just eats tires. So if everybody else comes in and you stay out, you're just a sitting duck. You have, like, zero prayer.
Yeah.
He should have – honestly, Newman should have had zero prayer last week. If it wasn't for Stenhouse getting in the – and I don't know why Larson did not stay in the middle of the track, knowing that Stenhouse was going to jam his nose in there. That was Larson's race, no doubt. If he gets through 1 and 2 clean, he walks away with it.
Yeah, and he almost had him off turn 4. I thought, if you gave him one more corner, I feel like there was people talking about he should have gave him payback for where Newman wrecked him for the chase. Yeah. So I thought about that for a second, but I was like, no, you don't want to mess with Ryan Newman. So
no.
Well, guys, that will do it. Hope if you listened to us last week, hopefully you made some money. I know I bounced back pretty well. I know PJ, he had some pretty good success as well. Make sure to like and subscribe to us if you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Good luck, guys.